Hello. There's a Guy DiNovelas, a nice kid. I have no complaints about Guy DiNovelas. In other words, he was put in my class as people that weren't even in my classes that I don't know at all. And I barely know Guy DiNovelas. A whole bunch of people tied to former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, into other countries, including Saudis I don't know the names of, non-verbally and verbally, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have collusions with Connecticut's Channel 3 News in conjunctions to it, in conjunctions to that, like Route 3 and the state judicial branch offices. To have roles with probate court judges, superior court judges and their family members and intimate ties, and victims advocates even, and prosecutors and their kids involved in other positions of the campus, but victims advocates with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, foreign and domestic military, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with that, but with a whole bunch of different countries. But just fake ties, fake nature ties, people aren't even in the same classes. Like a Joshua strike, people all along Route 175 were acted and put fake things in databases and have other people to look, and then they try to use that as evidence with it because they have collusions with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the lawyers and their sources and the courts. The same thing. Their family members, different natures of conjunctions to them, their neighbors, where they go to work. All that is exploited. Where this breaching method uses good people to stay evil. Otherwise, everyone's sensing for the breaching method. That's what we can discern with the black pupils' whites of eyes replaced, right from nature's communications to us, right from our founders' communications replaced. The human fact should be nature breaching method is replaced right from the founders' communications to us through James Madison, his plan that they had to use and why they had to use it. And they declassified how and why they did not have free speech. We're supposed to appreciate this. Instead, that's pretended debatable, while things that are pretended not debatable, you simultaneously are appreciating tactical terror from how nature shows us to appreciate them. So the only reason I have to use Mr. DiNovelas' name, I'm sorry, Dino, in other words, is I don't know. There's a Dellaferra family. They weren't in my grade, and they have roles with a bunch of judges with the same house next to me, involved with some police and some Mendez police too, with people confessed involved with them. And now these are people that attach me to fake conversations with the older Mendez police at the Weathersfield police station. I never had a word of conversation with him in my life. He's also involved with his brother and Eric Mendez, reportedly. But the Eric Mendez is at the New Britain Superior Court hallway, recorded planting sequence shifts and investigators pretending to be doing that. Investigators used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. They have collusions with proven child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, and they had roles forcing a principal upskirt nature with more sexual and medical offenders of kids involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones with a bunch of New Britain Superior Courts family members, as ones involved with New Britain Hartford courts too, at West Hartford locations and digitally before the World Trade Center attack, next to campuses like Central Connecticut State University. The same ones recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed collusions next to Trinity College and with people and their families' roles with UConn intelligence. UConn has roles with all kinds of psychiatry corruption at and next to Hartford Hospital, with a bunch of people that enter cities have roles with names at and next to campuses used to repeat fake things and then pretend other and go fishing where and how that could be shown. In other words, and that wouldn't be if you guys would follow mandated law. That's what that's why each year we have to pay attention what I caught them actually doing at and between each of the campuses I went. Next to the campuses I went in Weathersfield, Connecticut, a bunch of people directly and indirectly involved with the Ray Reynolds. I never tried to contact the Ray Reynolds in my life. His educators and their family members recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also with people tied to them, to friends of a Ray Reynolds. involved with my neighbors on all sides of my house, planting evidences with intelligence, foreign and domestic military with Central Connecticut State University in the Britain, Connecticut since I was a kid. There's a Burstein family involved with that, for example, and a Mr. Abruzzi, and people before I was in their class. Well, I wasn't in Mr. Burstein's class. So I had another teacher. He made two exceptions where they went over there so he could pull off his roles with predicate acts, pretended through other motivations, as his roles of predicate acts with facts, with a former director of the FBI, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, Robert Luskin. Also, people with the name DeMoro and Mike Roberts. I don't know all their names. People tied to Ray Claw with a Mike Roberts, and people all along Route 3 and its conjunctions to that, like the state judicial branch offices that have been planting evidences and databases with their educators. I never had a class with Mike Roberts. Increasingly, these are people he has roles of people all along Route 175 from the founding locations with intelligence that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He's one of many people involved with places associated, and people in places associated also with Robert Rodriguez from other areas and parts of Wethersfield that planted evidence on my street. Robert Rodriguez brought up the principal child abusers campus and doctors associated with a Scalora family. Increasingly, people, Scalora, DeMoros and Colo said that was their cousin, Scalora. People with the name Scalora have roles with the campuses and with people on West Farmers Mall, involved with people on Valleycrest Street in Old Wethersfield, which is next to where I went to a kindergarten for 1 year, and there was a Ray Reynolds in my class, and there was a Harris family. There's a Harris family with a Kevin Harris involved with organized crimes with prosecutors and judges in foreign countries at Quinnipiac University, involved with polling. That's influence. That's more than just influencing over polling and research locations. There's the legal library next to the state capitol has a weird guy involved with the FBI, also involved with all sides of criminal and civil cases in the courts themselves at the same time, with the names on the state judicial branch office, corrections offices. One of the people with WTNH sources and their intelligence next to them is the FBI. Has a Michelle Sandquist, who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, has roles with a Lance Cuddy that is also recorded involved with a Lena's Pizza on Park Street in a tiki bar there, involved with girls that switch names with the intelligence, but they're also with foreign intelligence, but they're also with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, involved also with this Michelle Sandquist confessions and other kids that went to my grammar school. They have something to do, with foreign in ways that they don't even understand, because there's a hyper foreign involved. For example, that which had slavery non-distinctly and not northern colonies and southern colonies entrenched. You always have had other taught to you than our founders declassified to have been taught for you guys. You're supposed to refer to our founders plural as James Madison singular, because they were using his plan. And that's why we were supposed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington and how they used that plan and the leverage of those founders to counter extort the rest of the founders being and having been the rest of the colonists and the Native Americans in more than 13 colonies entrenched, sickly distinctly against every single person with their laws. But collusion too. The difference of that as the guilt or the overt criminal enterprises or the private ones or the terrorists. This is a difference racketeering made all those differences hyper additional and collusions with it specifically to have everyone miss how really at the same time they're self-firing roles, replacing how nature communicates to us about difference. We have this not just because we have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time. Nature shows us we are a human species body of individual bodies with all group differences generated by it as a system. And its system, otherwise it demonstrates that we're using an abridged system. That's why we have black pupils, whites of eyes to discern. In other words, even the counters to the black and white as collusion /S as the array entertained. Not one has trade boxing. I forgot what I entitled this video. In other words, it doesn't show. But this is the subject, man. America. We are the human species body of individual bodies now long, having had nature demonstrate to us that we have been using other than the hypernative system, has been demonstrating with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and clearer than the day. The breaching method effectively maintains those demonstrations by nature itself. Those negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures instead blamed on other things, others, or selves, and self-valued roles that as collusion /S with its breaching method and is with its role with selves. Black pupils peer right through the layers to its soul. Begin to grip it all. Legion here again, your name, Republics too, and Romulus and Remus as science. Ooh, Republic longs. Here at the gates, the branches switch their name. They've sealed their fates. Please get Judge Napolitano to get the Wethersfield into branch onto paper within the Brit Superior Court and the Harper Superior Courts with their confessions on paper. Otherwise, their denials. And why on paper, why and how. I want them to respond for themselves, why and how they prevented paper so they can stick things in databases. What's the name of this officer Hunter involved with the FBI before and after the World Trade Center attack? With the intelligence at Central Connecticut State University involved with him on Park Street too. Oh, the FBI has rules with those courts in ways they don't even understand. Involved with them at crime scenes as collusions and the World Trade Center attack from Connecticut. Same ones I caught from other areas on my street involved with predicate acts with the Wethersfield Police Department and other police departments with the same house /S involved with syntax with them and backgrounds through the time and all sides of criminal and civil cases in the courts at the same time and the news. That's recorded through time. And then as the ones with their extended family members, the same thing in the World Trade Center attack in the court next to it and spots next to it. Long-term and short-term too. The names associated with that used remotely criminally foreign influence /hyper criminally foreign influence every single day, like the people with obligations not to leave black pupils whites of eyes with syntax. It's inseparable from proper syntax that with the names of the people, the sciences that they have long been taken apart from. In other words, so I have a hyper intelligence programming method that already has recorded proofs that they can't afford to have lists appreciated the way that my programming method will. I'm having to leak this. Facebook has rules of predicate acts for facts against me with a whole bunch of people tied to Wethersfield, Connecticut, on off the state corrections offices and the judicial branch offices and having planted fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, including especially people I never had classes with. And the difference of the people in the classes with recorded, forced, tricked, turned, persuaded to roles of all sides of criminal and civil cases and depositions, used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically, delusions raw. Mike Pandolf said it's with people all along Park Street too, and spots at the entrance to it. In other words, and I never saw him out. He sought me out to make confessions, demonstrations, confirm. He has rules with the intelligence community and with sexual and medical offenders of kids. I don't know all their names. They're tied to Ray Reynolds, his educators. In other words, there's nothing personal against Ray Reynolds. See, this is good people stay evil though. State police and Wethersfield police also have Eric Jensen and his family involved intercities with Newington, with the FBI and with state police and with Wethersfield, with the Ray Reynolds. and with others like with Central Connecticut State University and Middlesex Community College involved with predicate acts and with digital crimes and self-valued roles with the policing of the internet and roles with differences, racketeering worse than war crimes. Black pupils, as this is about. I'm not even a lawyer. Lawyers too, at Trantolo and Trantolo has wire mail crime methods with the intelligence recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they did with their communications. But the intelligence also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed them involved with this. All along Route 3 too. So please, Guy DiNovelas, if you know, if you can get those that Dellaferra family on paper, because they have more. There's a Judge Killian too, and a Judge Smith, and there are a bunch of people with the state judicial branch offices. There's a guy with a red pickup truck, also with a Facebook, and with pictures of kids and people that he had playing football in a field across the street from my house. Also with more fire departments, and with different people with the name Mike, like a Mike Kerr and a Mike Dellaferrah. I only know Mike Dellaferrah and Chris Dellaferra, and there's other Dellaferra with apparently he works at one of those bars along Route 3, but all along Route 3, the security and the businesses, they have roles of probate court judges involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and the only ones allowed to counter such things as collusions, including increasingly not just next to the state corrections offices as people involved in the World Trade Center attack, as is recorded. But see, they're putting fake things to hide what's recorded. A breaching method shows them they already had collusions with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the lawyers and the sources and the courts themselves and police forms and the interbranch family put in the same sequence shifts, the same differences, racketeering roles, needs, and natures used. No, in other words, and mistakes self-valid and collusion self-valid. Excuse me. Excuse me. So please get them on paper, one name and sequence. They're refusing to identify themselves interbranch. And while they stack predicate acts with facts and databases and fake motivations for it, this is their motivations for their roles with the World Trade Center attack. Also, their roles with names from the bordering states as families, as kids and adults, young adults, the difference of that, and the bordering countries who have collusions with different racketeering from the past. They have to hide life aggressions now because of that. Long-term past, all state is constantly, that never stopped being exploited. Russia and China, they were forced to defend those names as locations, areas, and states the same way our founders were, without free speech, but forced to pretend other anyway, to an extent, otherwise be sensed by and through our own as locations, areas, and states, everywhere the species body is. And that adapted to. Even if it was a majority of people, even if it's the whole country together at the same time, it's adapted to. Any grouping of countries to counter what this caused and keeps. As long as they're entertaining, blaming and having blamed it on other things, others themselves, their styles that can't afford not to have that, their syntax like that way used remotely too. Any grouping of countries is going to have one person speak for them too, no, if they're going to defend the order of the finite and roles with exceptions, exception nature, the way nature has it. Black pupils. Their readings of statutes and precedents they can't afford to have. Oh, but what about this exception? You know, their readings of their value of precedents has been taught through campuses that have stayed collusion /S. Tactical ulterior from the function dictated necessary by nature itself for the republic for which we stand in the campus Marcius system, with exceptions too, as it was properly to be led by that which is hyper invisible but still discernible distinctly from that which is invisible but still discernible. Black pupils, we have Black pupils' rights of minds to discern Not nature's course, not science on its spoke for subjects each, like slavery, like witch trials, like that breaching method sustained against Native Americans while it was helping them and while it was hurting them. And Native America's founders were born. No one had free speech, black people. Forgiveness is not to give up, but to not make blame without leaving out the breaching method. So to not get it wrong exactly the way it wanted and needs, because nature is increasingly showing us a human fact treating nature breaching method is one of those things that is true always, and not true is used by the breaching method for any tricks. That slavery and all those crazy laws were about. It was about a human fact treating nature breaching method. Nature itself shows us that. Our founders communicated that to us. They declassified how and why they didn't have free speech because of it. Black people, do not disbelieve. Who disbelieve? We need an act. Who disbelieves act. In other words, people have to respond if they disbelieve something, because the experts have been putting fake things in databases and say, oh, well, I thought that. No, they can't even do that on paper because it's all fake. CT must break. Increasingly, people enter cities tied to Wethersfield campuses have roles with the spots next to the state capitol and next to the Harry Beecher Stowe and Mark Twain House, as people involved with location uses that motivated them to hide and plot and forbid writing so they could fake more and hide what came first in their collusion with all natures of crime scenes. They already painted themselves way sicker than some of their worst criminals. In other words, in time collusions with the serial killer and the people next to the body dumping spot since I was a kid. So, in other words, and with a blue van that looked just like that by the people confessed, recorded, convinced, demonstrated, try to make fake exceptions to cover up what I caught them doing, all kinds of predicate acts with Wethersfield police. They should not have hid when Tony DeMoro told them about the gun and over the phone from my parents or from presidents, because they show fake transcripts to presidents. President Trump, please get the Leahy family off the fake conversations with me, and the ones with the Lombardo family too, and others there. And they put me fake conversations about religion and other things too. Black pupils. And see the design of that mosque on Franklin Avenue? It's a disgrace to the country and to the Islam itself. The design of it. And to our founders. And to their founders. See, people can't afford to have the beginning of the Quran understood. Or the beginning of the Old Testament. It would show the collusion with the people countering the religions and the people defending the religions. The people countering the types of things as collusion. You watch what they're using, how the breaching method used databases before our founders were born, how it used the republic for which we stand and its campuses system criminally re-engineered, / hyper-criminally re-engineered. We can discern this by discerning how those crazy laws, those torture, extortions, fact treating nature, slavery, therefore physically slavery laws, were non-distinctly, but also distinctly, but also non-distinctly, northern colonies and southern colonies entrenched. And then our founders were born. We could discern it with where and how it's motivated for people to pretend not to realize how campuses could be furthering, obfuscations of American history, really retellings of it while pretending other and getting away with it. You're not paying attention to where and how they have differences, rackets, roles. With this breaching method that replaces how nature uses difference, how nature uses reason, how to think, black pupils. This is principle. James Madison's plan, the founders behind him, plural. Then they got George Washington's degree. You guys won't even allow people to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. You guys don't have, you already with the breaching method showed the names of the people, the scientists, the names of the people of American history. They were used remotely, self-valuing. Other communicated for our founders than they communicated. In other words, blaming, pretending about a tea tax while slavery was entrenched. Get them down, black people. Get them healed. Get them onto paper. One name and sequence. Let me show y'all how to think. Formal, ye formal. People, other people. Please get them, because the people they put in the comments still are involved with the World Trade Center attack names, and the people on my area involved with the extended family members, with the proven child abusers, leaders of kids they forced. And they had me arrested and changed and faked what I caught them doing, recorded. They're putting wire crime acts and methods with the security of the campuses through time. The same ones. Increasingly, mass corruption concentrated with the different kinds of courts, different ways in their family members, like the probate court judges, involved with 6 solutions. In other words, and we're going to examine why really the elderly homes are the way they are, the impositions upon people. In other words, this is a torture, extortion, slavery perfected method since before our founders, before religious messengers were born. Before our founders were born, they put the design of all Weathersfield. They have other communicated at the founding locations than what they're supposed to have communicated about those locations and George Washington's roles, counter-extorted and having to counter-extort. The founders were plural behind James, and that was James Madison. And then the president started. He still didn't have free speech as a president, James Madison. That's declassified too. Ugh. Get them on paper, one name and sequence, black pupils. Now,